Hi everyone, it's Take here. I am currently studying architecture in London, well, specifically a foundation in architecture at the University of the Arts London, or UAL. And in this video I'll compare my foundation portfolio that I made this year with my A-level portfolio that I made last year when applying to my selected universities, so that you can see the difference and the overall jump that you make from A-level to foundation. I'm going to start with my A-level work first because, it's the one that I made first before my foundation, and I'm not going to go too much in detail on it because I already made a video about it. You can go and check that out if you haven't already, or if you're interested in any specific work here. And yeah, let's get started. So I included my extracurricular work first because they were the most architectural and overall, related to architecture instead of my level works. And there is a total of 5 projects here. This is how I started my portfolio with this project I made in summer 2019. And I have some initial sketches, translating the sketches into physical models, and then experimenting with new stuff. This is like some textile stuff that we were encouraged to experiment with. Model making again with different materials, some quick sketches of the form, and then this is the final piece. The theme was yesterday, today and tomorrow, and it was related to climate change. So my response to it was that yesterday, the past, we had this solid, well-built structures, but unfortunately because of the climate change and global warming, sea level rising, in the future most likely we'll have a lot of destruction. So that's why you can see all these pieces which are supposed to be pieces of destroyed buildings. And then I used colors to symbolize that despite yesterday we didn't have to worry so much about global warming and climate change, and even though the future can look a bit dystopian, something that we can do today is to have hope and think positively to find any solutions to overcome this. And then I got this project, which is a project that I made in CSM, some research on areas and brainstorming ideas. This was a rough sketch of things I wanted in my structure, some development, and then this is the final piece, which is an axonometric drawing. This is my final piece, and for this theme we were asked to create something that can reunite the whole community together. And my final piece, it's basically supposed to be a building where it's like a toy shop where kids and children, they can go and basically buy toys, so play with them, but at the same time it has a cafe that can attract basically parents, and they can just go there and chill there while their kids play in the toy shop. All of these ideas, they're not the most refined because I was in A-level, we didn't really have so much exposure in architecture, but yeah, that was basically the overall idea. Some photography, because I stated in my personal statement that I enjoy photography. This is the final extracurricular work that I've included, and I can't remember this project's name. I should have titled them here. I know that these slides, they look really messy. It's because I did them at the last minute when submitting for my foundation course at UAL, but when I went to my interview at UCL, I didn't show them these slides. They asked for a physical portfolio since I did it before the lockdown, and the physical one, I think it just looks a bit bad because I got the title on top of each page. But yeah, here I've done some quick sketches to get some ideas. I ripped old school shoe that I had and played around with foam, then tried to make some other models in reference to that shoe, and this is my final piece. To be honest, it doesn't really have any deep meaning to it, and it was mostly to experiment with foam. Schoolwork. The first one is my graphic design project, which was called the sci-fi project, and the aim of the project was to make an animation by the end of the year. And since I was doing sci-fi, I did some robots. I photographed my location, did some photographs of the model while moving it because I was doing stop motion animation, and then this is some screenshot from the final piece. I don't have the animation on my laptop, I left it in my school computer, but it was like a 4 or 5 second animation where these two robots, they go together and spray paint a protest because they are working too much and they are tired. These are some paintings that I've done for art, and I was exploring architecture and cityscape, and this was a final piece which I made for my mock exam in art. And I included some screenshot of a competition that I won in my Bora, alhamdulillah, and that was my A-level portfolio. And now let's move on to my foundation work, which I think is just much better than my A-level one, despite it's not at that high quality level, because most of the work we done it at home, so we didn't have the opportunity to use a lot the workshops, but it's just overall well. Oasis is my first project I included, and that's the name that I gave to this project, but in theory it was called Illuminate. And we were asked to create a space that it's activated by light. The first slide I included my mind map, because that's how I start most of my projects, not most, all of my projects, with mind maps and brainstorming potential ideas. And then I go a lot of secondary research for this project, primary research, and I took most of these photographs in the Canary Wharf Light Festival or around the city, and then did some random sketches, initial sketches and initial sketch models. And this was our task where we were pushed to make 3 models in 30 minutes, so 10 minutes for each model, and then I drew them to develop the form. I selected the one in the left because I just liked I liked how it looked. Development of my form, sketches and more models. This is my final model. I used cardboard and some food sticks, and the idea behind it is that it would be a place that attracts many cultures together, because when I took my primary images in Canary Wharf Light Festival, I noticed that something that light did in that situation is that it attracted a lot of people together, and that was the main concept of my project here. And the structure will be a garden in the desert. I don't know how I came up with the idea, I can't even remember properly, but I was thinking to locate it in the desert, specifically in the Sahara Desert, because it can attract, you know, the local indigenous, the Bedouin people, and also the tourists, hopefully around the world. And this is the final visualization. Something negative about this project is that I didn't clearly show how I went from my primary images being in London to my final visualization being in a desert. Instead, what I should have done is to add another slide and did some more research on the specific site where I wanted my structure to be placed at, and screenshot that place, write some, maybe a quote or two, or don't write anything, but visually show where specifically in the desert and how I came to this idea of the structure being located in the desert. That was something that I should have done to improve this project. Okay, moving on. This is Mask. I know it's not that original, the name of this project, and the overall theme was wearable architecture, so design something that is architectural in origins but it's wearable on the body. Secondary images and mind map, form finding and initial sketches. Here I was experimenting with stuff like paper and trying to create form around my body and then sketch them to see what they could be. Location and collages. My selected location is Whitechapel because the mask was supposed to be a response to the pandemic, and unfortunately places like Whitechapel didn't really have that much social distancing taking place, so I was thinking of making a mask between the seller and the buyer. Models, I limited my time to 10 minutes for each model. I basically do that exercise with all projects now because it's really helpful and it encourages you to be as experimental as you can, because you already have 10 minutes to finish the model. So you have to improvise and not think too much, just let your hands do the work. And final model and final visualization, and the idea was the seller and then the buyer, they would wear it together, and it's elongated to create social distancing, and it covers the whole face to make sure that you don't touch your eyes or any part of your face. I know that it's not the best response to it, but yeah, that's everything I managed to do in the 3 weeks that we had to complete this project. This is the final project I've included, which is called Dhaka's Canopy, but the theme was structure and surface. It's not really the most completed project because I've done in my first term of the course, and back then we all were kind of confused about what to do and didn't really have the most clear development process. And also the portfolio is not really the most completed portfolio because, to be honest, I kind of rushed it. Okay, I started off with exploring different words and secondary research. I think we had to select around 12 words, different words that we were given, and then do some secondary research on that. Initial sketch models and models, secondary research again, and location. Okay, something bad in this slide is that I didn't clarify where exactly the location is. I just took a bunch of screenshots on the street of Dhaka. However, it doesn't show where exactly this part of Dhaka is, which is something that doesn't really make the whole thing be very specific. And then secondary research, I looked into a canopy done by I think Asif Khan. There was a quote that really inspired me to develop this project further by Gottfried Semper. I think he was a German architect. But yeah, they gave me some ideas to how to develop the project. And then development, and this is my final piece for structure and surface. And the idea behind this model, as the name suggests, Dhaka's Canopy, is that it's going to be basically a canopy on the streets of Dhaka. Why Dhaka? It's because Dhaka has I think one of the worst traffics in the world, and every time I visit it's a very nice place, but when you have to travel from one place to another and you take the bus or the taxi, it's a complete nightmare, because a journey that takes you 10 minutes, it ends up taking you 50 minutes or even 1 hour or 2 hours because of the really bad traffic that there is, unfortunately. And the idea was that obviously this canopy is gonna create shade, but at the same time it has perforations to allow some light to go in and just make the streets nicer. And also, why there is so much weaving in the surface, it's to reflect the economy of Bangladesh, which is primarily based on exporting clothing. So yeah, that was my portfolio for my foundation course so far. I guess we're going to make another one by the end of it when we complete the final project. But overall, the portfolio, I'm pretty happy with it. It's not the most completed because we did it in the middle of doing another important and pretty long project in February time. So we had to really split our time between making the portfolios and working in our assignments and overall university work. But yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.